84 year Mokwamba Badale Update TV best na match na isu amoba hit adomano mba subscribe mba like mba share ma one pensemi bi etie so enye bi etie mesese mba jemre ni adanje ni aboran sim nim ni akuti nsema ne de etwagu etiefo mba kaya enne oh my Ghana fuel prices ene gas no ehuri kosoro pa eye na etiefo ena ohwe baby ye crack gas free ebi te say Nigeria ni crude oil ye exported by my Ghana mu nanso ni nyina no come say niema bo kwa na ekosoro mine no etifo ye nyina enim say tambia no ansa ne betoto niema mu no NPP fo e de nsemba bontin be keka nsema ebe ye timembu fo de nanso na dokure ebie nim ne no na Tsikata de nsembi atutu dwa mobeka ya Tsikata enim come say why CEO awo GNPC pen na metie say ye bebo room na nsema nso de aba abonten no efa ene crude oil ne gas ni fuel prices are rise kosre edien ni wom na expose be no na nima be na ekoso ye monrom nye nkoti Tsikata eba de ka ho bia yenso ye ba abedomo
ye nyini beto ye no ye hu de John Mahama ye no Kumasi ho monche de kofo ye no Kumasi ho de bia ena Irojet project kofo ne shase kofo ntre yen parliamentary records a etre se okoje sika bi se ye fancy hospitals bi de bia no omo bedi tumi a omo titetiri ho ade no a aban a wote so ese sika ho aye nhwehwemu e de ahye technocrat nsa ama omo de the response na ba no omo betie no ma be ma a different view of it ne nipa no aye dedi afa ho a ono ba ya enam say wa destroy identity no o implement ya no o implement ya say no go for ba ye enam ayi health insurance o ye health insurance thing na wantimi anye loss and protect health insurance no omo nya nyansa se nka omo di health insurance ne beba at 20 2000 omo free akonya no so no akofo wo baaye no e no be ye se onu na di sa de ne ba sa na akofo de be ye mu yenti Tsikata o de mo nim kofo na mo hia ye no yenti Tsikata yenti no
just the name. And well, sir, you were making a point before and I just interjected you, and I'm still interjecting now, and with the question, really, does Ghana have oil?
We do, and that has been proven not by Tsikata, who is no geologist, who is no petroleum engineer, but by the technical work that has been done, as I was saying, by many brilliant, dedicated, hardworking Ghanaians who have qualified in these fields and who are still capable of exposing their capacity to whoever cares to ask them. In fact, when Kofi comes in at that press conference tried to challenge all this,
the press conference of
2001 September, which I held, which he was saying no, there are no feasible. I said, forget Tsikata, go talk to those people who have the knowledge about the technical details even beyond me. So I have no question about that. We started again producing oil from the Saltpond field in November 2000. A lot of people don't know that. And since then, oil production has actually continued in the Saltpond field, even though it was interrupted for a period because the new government somehow had some issues about the agreement that we signed and so on and so forth. And you remember this became another subject in itself. But we are producing oil from the Saltpond field. Limited amounts, but it's still there. In the Tano fields, North and South Tano, we have the capacity to produce oil. But let me tell you one other important thing. Much of this debate that was instigated, for instance, when Kofi Kumsin's Chronicle started to write, in fact, had very little to do with GNPC's expenditures in relation to oil exploration. In fact, the issue that a lot of people don't realize was at the bottom of all that had to do with our import of crude oil from Nigeria for processing at the refinery for sale, the petroleum products. And that problem, the problem whereby GNPC has to import at a certain price, then we sell the petroleum products based on government-regulated prices.
At a loss.
Which are lower than the costs that are incurred. That problem is still with us today. In fact, soon after, Tema Oil Refinery also took over this function as a result of the government's decision that it should be taken over by Tema Oil Refinery. Tema Oil Refinery also started running into hundreds of billions of dollars, which today are in trillions. So when we, the scale of the problem has in fact increased. And the reason is simply because we did not learn the lessons from GNPC's experience. People started blaming Tsikata instead of seeing the structural problem that we have when an organization is given the responsibility to undertake this important national task and yet does not have the resources and has to have as an ongoing cycle of, in effect, bottling up the costs that have gone into servicing the nation in relation to petroleum products. It's a major issue, and I really wish that someday perhaps people will have an in-depth appreciation of that problem, because that's the problem that Tema Oil Refinery have today. That's the problem which has led to bonds being floated in order to deal with their, their costs and so on and so forth. It's a real problem. And
sir, well, some oil was hit, yes, but never, it seems, in commercial quantities. Why?
North and South Tano fields have the capacity to produce commercially modest amounts of oil, 6,000 to 8,000 barrels a day, not a lot admittedly, but also very significantly, a considerable amount of natural gas, which can be used for power generation. For me, one of the saddest parts of my reflections today is the fact that we still have not completed that Tano project and made available the gas resources that are richly available in the western region of Ghana, offshore, in order to give us electricity generated much cheaper than is being generated at Aboadze. In Aboadze, we're importing expensive crude oil to fire turbines which could operate at 1/3 the cost using natural gas. Why are we putting ourselves through that? And the gas resources are available to do that. And the plans and the projects to achieve that are there. We have a mining industry in Ghana that could benefit from such a major reduction in the cost of power that we could have access to from using our own gas. We have the opportunity also, using this gas development, to attract even further investment in our oil and gas production opportunities. It's, for me, a sad aspect of my sort of reflections that project seems to be somehow in midair.
Who knows? Well, maybe someday that may come. But within the same context about cheaper sources of energy, there is the West African Gas Pipeline project. Where does it come in? Will it really help?
The West African Gas Line project was indeed a project that we initiated. In fact, I can say that GNPC should be proud of the initiatives that we took in order to push NNPC in Nigeria, our counterpart, and then also, more importantly, to get Shell and Chevron together to combine with us. Those initiatives were taken very much from GNPC. In 1998, when we held our Oil and Gas Africa conference, at which all these companies were involved, we held a roundtable discussion, which was really the initiating point of that project. Now, unfortunately, I think that many things have happened since those days, which frankly take the project in a different direction from what I think represents the interests of Ghana. Because one, the kind of price of gas from Nigeria that we were talking about in those days is quite different from what is being talked about today.
Different means cheaper or what?
Much more expensive. We're talking of expensiveness by as much as 60 to 70% beyond what we had been negotiating in those days with especially Chevron. And for me, these are significant because if we're making long-term commitments, 20 years commitments for companies that are willing to supply gas from Nigeria and so on. That cannot be at the expense of our own natural resource in Ghana. What we tried to do was
for Utinsama Tsikata edit to Gaya. Now compare first near tofu, the price of fuel, ne or the compare quite fast tofu for. So even though first fuel cry need to be 12 CD in 15 CD, ne tima be do 50 CD. Na 14 say oh my no you say yes one ne oh my ya bobosia pa NPP era ye pe abanya if you come and Akroma pensu be drew NPP aban your mother so ope nipo bobosia pa na na do government sikano ewo hen tifo yentu ansemi so
in fact to marry the projects together to make sure that our own natural resources were developed and in fact became the initial source of supply and then got complemented by the imports. And we in fact also try to ensure that we also cooperated with Côte d'Ivoire, because right next to us on the border, on the western border, there are some gas resources which we also wanted to marry into the whole Tano project as one sort of integrated cross-border project, such that Ghana is never held to ransom, whether by Nigeria on the one hand or by Côte d'Ivoire, or indeed by the limited nature of our own gas resources. So the plan had always been to create the kind of regional infrastructure that makes us access both our neighbors' resources as well as our own. I'm not sure that that is still the kind of picture that we're seeing.
And from what we understand, GNPC, which is Ghana, has 16% shares in the West African gas pipeline project. Is that
that I hear has been taken away and it's been given to VRA. Now, again, the reality is that VRA does not have the expertise in this industry. That's just a fact. They are very good in terms of hydroelectricity and so on. But in relation to gas, VRA has no expertise. So that, in fact, is...
Unia, Mr. Maseda, Anna, 9 minutes. Okay? So, Uncle Fobet Nasia, journalist, ne boni di and Nacha Tsikata. We are okay on, eh? We are okay. Oh dear, just go to Google, Wikipedia. Obekwa kuhuni records a ye wo Ghana sa GNPC honum no. Sa GNPC honum no. You go and you read it for yourself. What they me chantro, abetna ho say ya the records na ya the document bay. Document bay. That time na Kofi Kumsin. No, my yen say it's like Orunanka, fan said that time, no, Manasia Zoremone, Sansai Nemo, or Muke Kansim Hunu. And Kofu we shall say the journalist, a year Jandam and yen new. And yen ne. These are the modern day Atwahuma. When what did you that Atwahuma? Sakwa Kuba Konum, they are the modern day Atwahuma. Atwahuma was a journalist who concerned journalist nana oye in the colonial times no. And now bisi kwaku ba akomoso. Kofi Kumsin and then Matisse yesi Kofi Benson. What dey Kofi for no? Mo be hanipa ogana ho. Yesi Kofi Benson bi and number bi say yen tribe ba omianhwe. Na office Ghana for ye Jimmy. Na wo koto abetie kra ye ma wo try hands and what wedi. Se wo koto abetie a efo a yesi nipa ne nkrama mpo na edie no. Wo koto abetie ru ane ma wo try aduane ne hwe. Mo de mo try why? Ba ko no ka se mo try me hwe no. Eno na mo amu ditum se wabebo akohwibra. Ana dwantoa obeye bold no waji impuna na ewo wani ase na firi ho. No waka che Ghana for say mo nkoto abantia wo mo. na mo koto abanso atia wo mo a indirectly no eye NDC ana beba na wo journalist no we gina enkrofo na nemu ahye enkrofo ne bo se senya ye ka chem se mo nkoto abama asumesi no se asumesi ni ba anase nye se oba wo ada ye de ne besi so no a na ya hyase na ya fa book number 1 mahama nase yen kai no na se ni refi kura na o de ensem no a wo ka no yen fa book ni yen kai ehwa ani aba John Kwame Dramani Mahama a o kai se 2023 ukojina asesewafo no hye asesewafo no bose ubisi market ama omo inti afi no aba wo wahye wadwuma ase on the 7th of January 2025 mema ure fi se asesewafo no. This is what we call journalism 101. And yes, I'm betna radio so na mo ranty say Facebook ne social media no something small. Hey, something small. Munye ni swadi hunu. Say Facebook no any social media platforms no something small. Anka kwesi tum on han ho say mun stream live so. A small space no be abetna se no didi obi atem. Me, I am not above reproach. Mahama is not above reproach. Likewise, you Dantwa, Kelvin Taylor is not above reproach. Obi biana obetna haka Ghana semno. So your bow, so ye bemo, so ye penyu, so ya crow, so ye wine is not above reproach and censure. But the ye canoa, moya adwin say munim no kura no, but one person would be ye human say. Me can't say men criticize you, but entrono a mudi no egu nipa so ene adwen se no a mo say nipa adwen efa nkofodu munim se niemo ye no mukoye sa pe a na mo ama one political party upper hand over the other.
For the masesa moje brewo daily update TV e best say comment section ho no say mobile vo comment ho na fi notification bell no click so send ye anytime we drop news and content bia on so mansa e be kan bi edamase.